We are getting some early lessons about how our president-elect plans to govern. If you're a company planning to move jobs overseas, well, expect a phone call.
I say, hi, how you doing? Oh, hello, Mr. President-elect. Congratulations. Yeah, congratulations. By the way, while we're on the phone, don't leave. Please don't leave. Please. And we've had great success. You'll be seeing a lot more success.
And if you're a critic who goes on television to suggest Trump is grossly exaggerating those successes, well, brace for a tweet storm. Just ask Chuck Jones, the Indiana Steelworkers Union leader, who says Trump is hyping how many jobs Carrier will now keep in Indiana as part of a deal brokered by the president-elect. Trump responds with tweets attacking Jones personally, you see those there, and attacking his union local.
He overreacted, President-elect Trump did, and I would expect if he was going to tweet something, he should have come out and try to justify his numbers.
What are we learning here? So, some of this is funny and some of it's entertaining, but some of it also is, I think, especially if you're a Trump critic out there, take a deep breath. He's going to be different. He was a different candidate. He's different in the transition. What are we learning about the governing thing, especially when it comes to, calling a company or going after a critic on television? Do we expect Donald Trump, if somebody on this panel, somebody else says something harsh against him or raises questions about him, he's going to spend his days as president doing this?
I think he's learning it's effective. It's going to become more clear over time that people don't want to be, inciting the ire of the 45th president, and companies that don't want to be the wrong end of a tweet storm are going to, do what he requests.
It showcases a potential interventionist president, something that I think would give a lot of Republicans pause, who don't like to see a president and a White House picking winners and losers. And it also shows just the power of his social media. I don't think we can overstate, because anything that he says on Twitter, he's going to command a national, international audience, and he could change the conversation with just 140 characters. Right. It's really, we saw it in the campaign. We're seeing this already when he tweeted about Boeing and essentially changed the focus away from the discussion that day, which was about Michael Flynn and his son pushing fake news stories about a very popular pizza place in Washington, D.C. that led to a gunman showing up there. So we're seeing a little bit of both, his intervention in the economy, and as well as the way he uses Twitter.
You mentioned how he uses it to distract us or to get us to follow the next bouncing ball or flashing red light. General Flynn was in the news that day, but the Boeing attack questioning the cost of the new Air Force One also came the very same day the CEO of Boeing was quoted in the Chicago Tribune questioning Trump's policies on trade. So is this, and again, I mean it the way I mean it, just like I'm going to say it, is this a new version of the bully pulpit?
Yeah, I think there's some of that involved here, and you're right. You cannot freak out about every single Donald Trump tweet. Right. Many people have tried that. It's exhausting. So, but I think he's going to be different. This is going to be part of it. And there's a part of it that I think is genuinely dangerous. Like the flag tweet is actually chilling speech if you're saying that and you're the president-elect of the United States. But you can't tell Donald Trump that, because this is what got him here. Right. And the overreaction to so much of it does, all this sound and fury gives Republicans, by the way, room to do all the things that they would like to do while everyone is focusing on something else. And I think that's what happened in some of these Senate races with Rob Portman and others who were just like, I'm just going to be the regular guy over here while all this noise is happening. And I think that's sort of the weird magic of Donald Trump for some of this.
There's a thing about scalability, I think, with Trump, and one is that he's had a big megaphone, but he's about to get a bigger one in the Oval Office as president. And the other thing is during the campaign, a lot of times he would punch down. He would make fun of Rand Paul at the end of the stage. When there's no need necessarily to. And he won, but you see that now with the union issue. A guy that is out there, that Trump just can't contain himself to not punch down at that guy and not focusing on some of the bigger, broader issues. So I think there's an ability to distract Trump, and have him go after sort of people who are smaller than him. And now he's president of the United States. And that's going to be a big...
That guy, the union man, did say in a Washington Post op-ed before he was on television that Trump was lying through his rhymes with grass about the numbers in the Carrier deal. And I think we'll have this debate. You mentioned, A, the numbers, but B, Republicans saying, is this free market economics? The president of the United States acting kind of like a governor, calling up CEOs, saying stay, don't go. We'll add up the numbers in 6 months or a year and see what the actual impact is. But if you're the blue-collar guy in a bar, in a union hall, you're thinking great. Yeah. You're thinking great. The problem, one of the reasons I voted for Trump, and one of the reasons I'm so mad at Washington, is because none of those bastards do anything for me. And so I think politically for Trump, for the little guy out there, it shows that he cares.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
And-
who he is. That's fundamentally who he is. He wants to be the guy on the phone making the deal. He wants to be in the room where it happens. That's him, right? And
Right.
so I think you will see a lot of that, even when I think it has some chilling effects on the economy or on how free market
Because
economy.
it's going to be really hard to get stuff done through Congress. If he can do things on his own like this, he can obviously say he's achieving the things that he campaigned on, even if he has a difficult time getting support for things on Capitol Hill.
You think Mike Pence would get it, but you think Donald Trump gets the Aaron Burr reference there? Okay. All right. Here, another point, though, is when it's it's all fine it's part of his strategy. The question is sometimes it's not exactly fact-based.